My dad's shocking announcement, a new baby, 20-year sibling gap, and a family I didn't expect. On my graduation day, my dad shocked me with the news that he's having a baby, creating a 20-year age gap between us. How can I cope with such a big change in our family? I never imagined this would be the moment that unraveled me. It was supposed to be my day, the culmination of 4 years of sleepless nights, endless papers, and pushing myself through the grind of college. My graduation. A day I'd dreamed about, counted down to, imagined over and over again. I had expected hugs, laughter, pride in my parents' eyes. And for the most part, I had that. Until my dad pulled me aside at the airport just minutes before I was supposed to fly back. He smiled the kind of smile that holds back something big. His eyes were shining, but I couldn't tell if it was joy or nerves. And then, out of nowhere, he said the words that changed everything. "You're going to have a new sibling." Just like that, I stood there frozen, the world around me blurring out. I forced a response, something, anything, to fill the deafening silence between us. "Oh, wow. Really?" My voice cracked, my smile stiff. I tried so hard to seem okay, to not look like my stomach had just dropped through the floor. I knew it wasn't the right reaction. I knew my dad had probably hoped I'd be happy for him. But I wasn't. I was confused, stunned, and honestly hurt. I'm 23, the middle child of 3. I have an older brother who's 25 and a younger brother who's 17. We grew up close, not just in age, but in spirit. We were a trio. We were balanced, connected whole. Even when our parents divorced 4 years ago after 19 years of marriage, that connection between the three of us remained solid. If anything, it became stronger. So when the divorce happened, I told both of my parents, maybe half joking, maybe not, that I hoped they wouldn't have more kids. Not because I was bitter or selfish, but because I didn't want that dynamic to change. I didn't want to become one of those families I saw in our extended circle where people had half-siblings 20 years younger from different parents, feeling more like distant cousins than real siblings. And my dad had agreed. Multiple times, actually. He said 3 kids were enough. He was happy with us. He didn't want to start over. So you can imagine my shock when years later, on a day that was supposed to be all about me, he tells me with zero prior warning that he's having another child. Not with someone I knew. Not someone I had ever met. In fact, he had never mentioned her. Never introduced us. Never even said he was dating someone. And now suddenly he was telling me that this woman who doesn't even live in the US is pregnant with his child. It felt like the ground had shifted underneath me. That night, alone in my hotel room, I couldn't stop replaying it. The tone in his voice, the lack of preparation, the smile as if he expected me to be thrilled. I scrolled through old photos on my phone, pictures of my parents, before the divorce vacations with my brothers, Christmas mornings, when we all still lived under one roof. I missed that family. The family I thought I'd always have, even if we didn't live in the same house anymore. This new baby wasn't just a baby. It was a symbol of a life my dad was building, a life I wasn't part of. A life he hadn't thought to share with me until the last second. I don't hate the baby. I don't even hate the woman, whoever she is. But I hate what this change means. I hate the way it makes me feel like I'm being pushed out of a picture I used to be centered in. Like I'm being replaced, or worse, forgotten. There's going to be more than 20 years between me and this new sibling. By the time they're learning to walk, I'll be in my mid-20s, working, building my own life. By the time they're starting school, I might be starting a family of my own. How could we ever be close? How could we bond like I did with my brothers? I feel selfish even thinking it. My dad deserves happiness. He deserves love, and maybe he even deserves to be a father again. But what about me? Don't I deserve to feel like I still matter in his life? Don't I deserve to be told gently, honestly, and not during one of the most important weekends of my life, I should have had this moment to myself, to celebrate, to be honored, to feel like I had accomplished something huge? Instead, I spent the night crying, wondering what else I didn't know about my own father, and where exactly I now stood in his new chapter. And the worst part, he thought I'd be happy. The plane ride home felt endless. I stared out the window, pretending to sleep so no one would talk to me. My mind was spinning with questions I didn't even know how to ask. Who is she? Where does she live? How long has this been going on? Why didn't he tell me sooner? I kept thinking about how little I knew about the woman carrying my half-sibling, about my father's life now. The man who used to tell me everything, who made pancakes for dinner and picked me up after school plays, had kept this massive change from me until the very last minute. And not just change a child, a whole human being who's going to be part of my family. But how could I call it a family when I don't even feel part of it anymore? When I got back home, I avoided my dad's calls. I couldn't bring myself to fake excitement or pretend everything was okay. The more I sat with the news, the more complicated my feelings became. It wasn't just shock anymore, it was grief. I felt like I was grieving the version of my family I used to know. Grieving the unspoken promise that our tight sibling bond would stay untouched. Grieving the image of my dad as the man who meant it when he said 3 is enough. I didn't want to be petty, I didn't want to be jealous or bitter. But I couldn't lie to myself either. I felt replaced. I felt like my dad was starting over and I wasn't invited to the beginning. And I didn't know what hurt more, the fact that he was having another child, or the fact that he didn't think I deserved to be part of that decision, that process, that joy. Late one night, I finally picked up his call. His voice was cheerful, as if nothing had changed. He asked how I was, how the flight went, if I had fun at the graduation dinner. I kept my answer short. Finally, after a long silence, he asked, "Are you upset with me?" I didn't know how to say what I felt. How do you explain to someone that you feel like a stranger in your own family? That their happiness feels like your heartbreak, that you're trying so hard not to be selfish, but every part of you aches with confusion and sadness. So I just said, "I'm not mad. I'm just trying to figure out where I fit now." He didn't answer right away. Maybe he didn't know how. Maybe he didn't think I'd take it so hard. Maybe he thought I was too old to care this much. But I do. I care deeply. Because to me, family has never been just about blood. It's about connection, memories, closeness. And now that closeness feels fractured. I want to love this baby. I really do. I want to be there to be a sister. But how do I love someone I may never even meet? Someone who will grow up in a house I've never visited, with a mother I don't know, in a country I might never see. And how do I forgive my dad for making me feel like I had to be okay with all of this? Overnight. This should have been a conversation, not a surprise. A gentle talk, not a bombshell. A bridge, not a wall. But now all I feel is distance. Not just from the baby or from this mystery woman, but from the man who raised me. The man I used to trust with everything. And that hurts more than anything. Days turned into weeks, and I kept thinking the feelings would pass, that eventually I'd accept the news and move on. But the more I tried to convince myself I was okay, the more I realized I wasn't. I couldn't focus. I was snappy with people I love. I cried over little things like a song on the radio or a picture of me and my brothers when we were kids. I didn't know how to explain it to my friends. They all said the same things. It's not a big deal. You don't even live at home anymore. Just be happy for your dad. And I wanted to scream. Because yes, I am happy that he's happy. I don't wish him misery or loneliness. But this isn't just his life changing. It's mine too. And no one seemed to understand that. They didn't grow up the way I did, in a family that, for all its flaws, felt deeply connected. Where we leaned on each other, laughed until our stomachs hurt, and told the same stories 100 times because they still made us feel warm. My childhood wasn't perfect, but it was mine. And now it feels like someone tore the last page out of the story and started writing a new one without me. My brothers reacted differently. My older brother shrugged it off. He's a grown man. Let him do his thing. My younger brother was quiet about it, but I could tell it unsettled him too. "It's weird," he admitted one night. "But I don't think I care that much. I probably won't even see the kid." And there it was, that fear again. That this baby would be born into a version of our family where I'm just a name they hear occasionally. A sister they've never met, or maybe meet once and forget. That I'll become this ghostly figure in their life, someone who didn't quite belong. I don't want that. I don't want to disappear from my own family. So I tried something. I messaged my dad, just a simple text. "Can you tell me more about her?" Meaning the woman he's with. The woman carrying my sibling. He replied quickly, eager. Said her name, her country, how they met. He sent a photo, blurry, but she looked kind. He said she's excited to be a mom. That the baby is due early next year. That he hopes I'll come visit one day. And reading that, something inside me softened. I realized that maybe he wasn't trying to replace the family we had. Maybe he was just trying to build something new and hoped I'd come along, even if he didn't know how to ask me the right way. I still had so many feelings. Still felt raw. Still didn't know what kind of sister I could be or what kind of relationship I'd ever have with this baby. But for the first time since that conversation at the airport, I didn't feel only sadness. I felt curiosity, maybe even hope. Because maybe love doesn't always look the way we expect it to. Maybe family isn't broken, just different now. And maybe I still have a place in it, even if I have to redefine what that place is. I'm not fully okay, but I'm trying. And for now, I think that's enough. It's been a few months now, and I think I'm beginning to understand something that I couldn't. Before this situation, my feelings and even my relationship with my dad and this new child aren't a zero-sum game. For so long, I felt like this new baby would take away from what I already had. Like it would somehow erase the bond I shared with my dad, with my brothers, or the life we had built together. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized that it wasn't about subtraction. It wasn't about losing anything. Instead, it was about expansion. I still remember sitting on the couch one evening scrolling through my phone when I came across a photo my dad had sent of the woman he's with. She looked warm, kind, everything I had hoped for. I found myself staring at the picture, imagining what she might be like in real life. Her name was Laura, and she lived in a small town in Spain. She looked nothing like the women I imagined my dad with. No, she was completely different from the past relationships I'd seen him have. And for the first time, I felt a small flicker of acceptance. Maybe I didn't need to understand everything right now. Maybe I didn't need to know all the answers. But one thing was clear, my dad was moving forward and I had to learn to do the same. The hardest part was still the age gap. The 20-plus years between my new sibling and me felt daunting. I could already imagine the difference in our lives. The baby would grow up with parents who were in their own way starting a new chapter of life. Meanwhile, I was entering adulthood, figuring out my own path and working to make my way in the world. What kind of relationship would we even have? What would it feel like to have a sibling who might always be younger than me? A child whose entire existence would be shaped by the reality of a very different family dynamic. But then again, what does a normal sibling relationship even look like? I've learned over time that no family is perfect. Every sibling bond is different. So why should I expect mine to follow some set of rules? I decided to take a step forward. I reached out to my dad and asked if we could plan a trip. He was thrilled. It was strange how excited he seemed about something that just a few months ago I couldn't imagine doing. But now the idea of meeting this child, of stepping into this new reality, didn't feel like an imposition. It felt like an opportunity. I wanted to be there for my dad. I wanted to see his joy firsthand. I wanted to meet the woman he loved, the person who was going to be the mother of my sibling. And most importantly, I wanted to begin to form my own opinion about this baby, this new life, without the bitterness and uncertainty that had plagued me earlier. I wanted to give it a chance, and so I boarded the plane. It wasn't just about meeting the baby. It was about starting over with my family in a way that felt true to who I was, even if it looked different from the family I thought I'd always have. I didn't know what to expect when I landed in Spain. I didn't know how I'd feel when I saw my dad with this new partner, or when I finally met my half-sibling. But one thing was clear: I was going to try. Maybe there would be moments of discomfort. Maybe I would still feel a pang of jealousy or sadness now and then. But I was ready to face whatever came my way. I was ready to see this new chapter of our family not as a threat, but as part of the journey. And when I met my dad's baby, when I looked into that tiny face, I was surprised by what I felt. A connection, a hope, a new bond. The bond wasn't instant. It wasn't like flipping a switch, but it was there slowly, like roots pushing through the earth. And I realized then that family isn't static. It changes. It grows. And maybe, just maybe, the best parts of us can emerge even in the most unexpected of circumstances. I wasn't ready for this, but now I think I'm learning how to be. It's been a while since I first stepped into that new reality. And while the road hasn't been perfect, I feel like I've found a place where I can breathe. A place where I'm learning to accept everything that's changed and finding peace with what is. Meeting my half-sibling wasn't a magical moment like I had imagined it might be. It wasn't the instant, overwhelming feeling of unconditional love I thought I'd experience. Instead, it was a quieter, more gradual shift, a slow unfolding of possibilities. When I first held my little sibling in my arms, I was nervous. This tiny, innocent person had never asked for any of this. They didn't know the complexities of my emotions, the weight of the history between my dad and me. All they knew was the warmth of my embrace and the new world they were just beginning to experience. And in that moment, I realized something important. This child wasn't an addition to my family that would take something from me. No, they were a new start, a fresh chapter that didn't diminish what I had with my brothers or my dad, but instead added something new and valuable. What struck me the most was seeing my dad hold his baby. There was a tenderness in his eyes that I hadn't seen in years. He looked at this new little life with such pure joy, and in that moment I understood something else. This wasn't about replacing what we had, it was about building something new. And it didn't change the love he had for me or my brothers. It just expanded it. I spent the next few days with my dad, Laura, and the baby. They were kind and welcoming, even though I knew the situation was awkward. I wasn't entirely comfortable, and they understood. But what struck me the most was how easy it was to slip back into the rhythm of family, just with different faces. It wasn't seamless, but it was real. And when I finally left, I didn't feel sadness or resentment. I felt a kind of cautious optimism. I knew that the road ahead wouldn't be perfect, that I might always feel a little distant from my new sibling because of the age gap. But I also knew that I wasn't the only one learning how to navigate this new family dynamic. They were too. I came back home and started to find my footing again. Things were still different. I still had moments when I felt the weight of change. But I also had moments when I laughed with my brothers and felt that familiar bond, the one I had feared losing. The truth is that bond didn't go anywhere. It was still there, holding me up. And as for my new sibling, well, they're still very young, but I've found a way to stay involved even from a distance. I check in when I can, I send messages and photos. I talk to my dad more often, and the conversations feel different, less about the past and more about the future. I've learned to embrace the unknown, to step into this new family with an open heart, even if it's not exactly what I expected. I still don't know what the future holds, but for the first time, I feel like I'm okay with that. I'm learning that family isn't about fitting into a mold or following a perfect script. It's about connection, and connections can grow in unexpected ways. So no, this hasn't been an easy adjustment, but it's been worth it. Because in the end, it's not about whether I'm ready for the changes. It's about learning to be present with the changes, to find peace with them, and to allow myself to grow with them. Maybe I wasn't ready for the sibling, maybe none of us were. But now as I look at the family, I have the family that's constantly evolving. I realize that this is the family I'm meant to have. It's messy, it's unpredictable, but it's also mine. And that's enough. If you enjoyed this story and found it meaningful, don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel so you won't miss out on more heartfelt and inspiring stories. We're here to share real-life experiences, valuable life lessons, and thought-provoking moments. Thank you for listening, and see you in the next video.